risk it all.
Yeah, we are risking.
Let's
it all.
live on
All
the
right,
edge.
So, look at this. Rory Scovel is here. Huh?
It
Come
really is
on.
a good day.
I made it.
We were just
I made
trying
it.
to figure out when the last time we might have seen you was, and I feel like it's been 130 years.
That's exactly. That
it?
is a great guess. I think I don't know if it was the Smokey Bissell Classic. I don't remember the last time, or if we were at the club one night. And when I say club, I mean comedy club. I don't want us to sound like we're cool and hip and go
Right.
out
We're
and
not.
rage into the night.
I played piano for you on stage.
Yes. That was like 2018.
It was. Our
Yes.
kids were young because you and I had a conversation about how great it is to go eat dinner at 4:30.
Oh yeah.
That was our
I
new
still
life.
feel that way.
Same.
Even though we could now go later, I'm still a 4:30 guy.
We were just
This
talking
This is how
about that.
you
today.
transform into a grandparent before having grandkids.
Well,
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
America's trend now to eat dinner early, and
Yeah.
you were on the forefront of that.
You can also get reservations. Nobody wants that. No one's going on a date and like, let's go at 5. But when you're a kid, you're like, yeah, we'll go at 5.
That is correct.
Well, like 3. Let's go at 3. Let's skip lunch, do an early dinner.
You have beverages and you're in bed by 10:30. It's like the perfect evening.
10:30. I'm not in college anymore. Okay, I'm in bed by 7:45.
Are you a comic? What are you doing?
I'm up for morning radio, and then I just sit in my house and just stare at a wall while my family sleeps. I have the life of a serial killer who's never murdered anyone.
Yet.
Have you? Is that real?
I mean, I've thought about it. I just never, I procrastinate so much.
So are you, now that you're like a big TV star,
Huge.
are
Absolutely
you,
huge.
Are you allowed to even like talk to us about TV? Because there's a strike. I don't know if you heard about it.
Wouldn't that be great if you couldn't even mention it? Yeah, no, I'm on the show Physical,
Yeah.
and we probably I have no idea what the rules of promotion are, but the show has a 3rd season that's about to come out, and it's the 3rd and final season. But I will say that whole gig popped up. COVID happened, everything shut down, and then I got this audition because people were still going to just forge ahead and figure out how to make stuff, and so, yeah, I ended up getting a role I would have never thought that I would get to do, playing Rose Byrne's husband in a very cool show that has, actual depth to it. And it was crazy.
Well, that's what when you said serial killer, because it feels like a little bit, you're a totally different person in that show.
He's not a likable character. If you haven't seen the show and you know my stand-up, season 1, I'm not likable at all. And I think it's a testament to my acting, because you guys can attest. I am such a ray of sunshine. You guys know me.
But I will tell you, the wife started watching, and I caught the second episode, and we've watched both seasons now.
Oh, great. Yeah.
And I'm like, Rory can act his ass off.
I love that.
I've hung
Nice.
out with
Thank
this guy. I've played golf with him, and I hate him right now. Like, I'm looking up on the screen. I'm like, that's not the dude I know.
I love that. That feels great. I have met people after shows, and they're like, I've never seen you do stand-up. And one woman after a show in Los Angeles, she goes, I'm having conflicting moment right now because I've only seen you in the show, and I hate you, but I saw your stand-up, and you seem like a normal person. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm not that guy.
Right. He's acting. And I was like, this is brilliant.
Yeah.
Although I can't tell you, like, you put on the glasses and the giant sideburns, and I'm like, I know that dude.
Yeah.
It would throw me off because I half expect you to occasionally just to turn to the camera and sort of
little throat, a little wink.
just a little, hey, it's still me back here.
Hey guys, I know I seem unlikable, but it's still me, Rory Scovel, at my core.
Right.
I stole those glasses.
Did you really?
Yeah, the season 3, they were like, you're not going to wear glasses this year, and I go, can I have the glasses? Because they're my prescription. I was like, can I have them? And the props guy came over and he handed it to me. He goes, you didn't get these from me, and just like walked off. And I was like, no, I didn't. Now I wear them all the time, and people look at it and they're just like, you look weird. Like, what is going on?
Because it's straight out of like what, 1976, 77.
Well, the whole thing is like early 80s, but those glasses are in that like late 70s, early 80s zone. Yeah. It's crazy. What a bizarre job. I mean, I was doing stand up and then a tour ended because it had to, and I had no money. And then suddenly I got a gig and I was like, oh, okay, this is, I have to like really not get, I went to work every day watching Rose Byrne act, and I was like, it's just a matter of time till I'm fired. It's a matter of time.
Professional British actress.
She's so amazing. She's so nice. She's so wonderful. But like her talent as an actor, there were some scenes where I was like, I'm just watching her, and then I'm like, oh wait, I have to talk. I'm supposed to do my job because she's so good. I'm just like, oh my God, I have front row seats to a performance right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that was cool.
How does that? I mean, how do you end up on that show for real?
I did. The bare bones truth of it was my dad passed away in June of 2020, not from COVID. He had a heart attack, and so I was in the darkest place I've ever been. I get an audition to put myself on tape. Obviously, they're not having people come in do cattle call stuff. And I'm putting myself on tape. Could not care less about doing it. I didn't want to do it at all. I'm putting myself on tape, and in the back of my mind, I'm like, despite my grief, I need a job. I don't know when stand-up is going to happen again, and this is a job.
Right.
So I'm trying, and like most times when I put myself on tape, I hate it. We always kind of hate watching ourselves. I'm like, this isn't good. I don't get these roles anyway, so who cares? And my wife, who's reading it with me, she was like, it's COVID. Everything is closed. There's nowhere to go. She's like, why don't we just do it 100 times? Because we literally have nothing else to go do.
Right.
And I was like, all right, fine. And so because of that, I just kept doing this one scene over and over again. And then finally something started clicking where I was like, I don't know, maybe I could do this. Send it off. And, by the grace of God, Annie Weissman, who's the show creator, and it's, such a personal story to her, she really liked it. And she was like, everyone else is going with this version of the guy, but this guy is playing this very dark thing sort of comically because I thought we were supposed to. That was my instinct.
Right.
So I'm kind of sliding in this humorous delivery on things that aren't supposed to have it. And just by luck, that stood out to her. And she was like, oh, I like that. That takes a little bit of the bite off of how, horrible of a guy he is.
Right.
And then I got a call back, and I did the call back in my, basement, set up the computer. It was like 8 p.m. one night, or probably not that late, 6 p.m. or something. I remember it was the evening. And
you had just finished dinner.
And I'm literally sitting. I got everything out of this room because of COVID and Zoom and stuff. I was like, oh, I need this to look decent. So I cleared out this little room, set up on my giant Apple monitor, and just sat there. And it was like they'll show up when it's your turn. And so I just sat there for about 5 to 10 minutes, really super nervous, in a locker room. Halftime, talking to myself like, all right, just stay calm and do your best and blah, blah, building yourself up. And then they suddenly come on. And I got to say, because, the director, Craig, and Annie, and they're all so nice and their energy's so good. But also, I've never auditioned in my own home where I don't know who I'm up against. Right. I didn't have to hear their audition. Right. So I'm not in my head. I'm like, it feels isolated in a vacuum. And then I did the audition and it went well. And then they're like, why don't you do a chemistry read on Zoom with Rose Byrne while she's in Australia? And so I did a chemistry read with her, and then suddenly it was mine. And I was like, oh, I have to keep this job. This is all we've got.
That's amazing.
But we were talking, because you guys haven't seen the show, right?
I've seen bits and pieces, but there's so much good stuff, damn it. Stop doing good things. I can't keep up. I really can't.
It's fantastic, the show, but they're like, it's a comedy. I was like, no, but there's funny parts
I know,
to it.
You look it up and it says dark comedy, and he's like, it's not a comedy. And I'm like, well,
it's
dark. It's dark because it's so real. It's coming from such a real place from Annie, and it's like, if there was no jokes in it, it would be so much harder to swallow. So like that little bit of comedy, you almost need it to be like, hey, look, we don't have to go so super dark.
100%.
Yeah.
Because it gets to some dark spaces, and you're like, oh, I got to turn this off, and then something will hit, and you'll be like,
yeah, it lightens it. Yeah.
Fantastic.
It's interesting that, so you said that the third season starts any day now, but then that's it.
That's it. Yeah.
This is like a thing now, because I feel like when you and I were growing up, it was like a show, if it was doing well, you just keep going.
Yeah, I think that's
Ted Lasso's like, no, we're done. And then you're like, well, we're only going to do 3. I'm like, what do you mean you're only going to do 3?
Yeah, I'm not on that side of it, so I never understand any of those decisions that get made and why, and maybe they're justified. And also, we live in a time where I couldn't sit here and tell you how well Physical's doing. Now, you go back 20 years ago, I could tell you, because you would know it. You'd have, the ratings, and you'd have advertisers buying space, and that's going to also signify clearly we're doing well if they're able to sell that ad space.
Right.
But now we live in this time of like streamers, and this is a testament to the strike. There isn't some sort of shared information to know how well or horrible you're doing. You just don't get to know. So now there's not any sort of a negotiating chip, and also there's no shared revenue if suddenly you are crushing it and you are contributing to more revenue for a company. And so you don't get to know it. And you're kind of like, we used to get, residuals because things would play on TV and then you get a little extra money. And also that's how a lot of actors would qualify for health insurance and get to do more or get to buy a house. But now we live in a time where, and I think a lot of the world thinks this, a lot of the world is like, well, if you're acting and you're on a thing, you make so much money. And I think there was a time when if you were on a TV show, you did get paid a lot and you did kind of get labeled a star. We now live in a time of so much content that it isn't that anymore. You might be on a hit show and still look at someone and be like, well, no, I could never buy a house. And that seems absurd to us. But yet it's very real now, especially in Los Angeles, where it's so expensive, but yet the main industry there can't even pay enough for the people who facilitate that industry to exist can afford to live in the city where that industry is.
It is a weird time because of the proliferation of content, but then also the difference of how, advertisers are paying for things or not.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
But you're right, obviously you don't depend on it on a show that's on Netflix or Apple or whatever, but we see it in this business all the time. The way people are spending money is completely different.
It's all different, and like everything has changed. And I think they're kind of like, hey, it's like all things. It's like all things in the United States, at least, where it's like, hey, the money coming in is so huge that the people in charge should get paid a lot because look at how well it's doing. Right. And then you go, well, what's minimum wage the past 20 years? And you're like, still $7. And you're like, there's no reality where that can sustain. No matter who you are. If you're someone like, well, then get this job or do that. Like, it doesn't matter what your beliefs or who you are. No system can sustain if the people who facilitate the system aren't,
can't live.
If they can't survive, what are they supposed to do? And so it's so scary. I mean, this is just one of many strikes. Luckily, the UPS one, it seems like that's going to be, that's not a no-go because they came to some kind of conclusion. But I don't think this is the end of it. I think most industries across the board, and I'll tell you what, when it becomes healthcare is when we're really going to start to pay attention. When healthcare is like, hey, nurses actually need to make money. Right. They need to be paid for what they do. Yeah. Teachers, like this is just actors and
they
writers.
get 3 months off during the summer.
I know. So that's what everyone's like. You know what? These teachers,
back of the line, teachers, back of the line.
Sure, they might have to buy their own supplies.
That's what Amazon's for, and that helps the UPS drivers. It's called the circle of life.
You know what? I never saw it this way, but you're right. You should be running for something. What are you doing here?
I am running this show. Whose name's on top?
I think people look at the strike thing as like when we see pro athletes striking, and I'm sure they have some legitimate grievances as well, but on some level that is millionaires and billionaires arguing.
Yeah.
Whereas it's not. I think people think that about the SAG thing and the writers thing, and it's much more. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if this helps anybody kind of put it in perspective, in SAG, which I'm a member of, that's the union, which you become a part of, and you want to become a part of it because they fight for you, like most unions. But 80% of SAG members don't earn $26,000 or more. And because of that, they don't qualify for health care through the union. And so when people are like, oh, these actors and everybody makes so much money, 80% of them don't make enough to qualify for health care. Wow. So you can imagine how many of them are probably getting by barely to pay rent and all of these other things. And they're in an industry, helping the industry. And I'm not talking about like, not everyone's a good actor. I'm talking about very good actors who don't qualify.
Jennifer Esposito came out recently and said there have been years I couldn't qualify for health insurance.
Exactly.
And everybody knows that.
Yeah, and it's crazy. And you'll be on, a show on like Netflix or something where it's like, and then a bonus of $50 million was given. And you're like, oh my God, like the money is there. You've got to share it. No one's saying give all the money away. If you still want to be wildly greedy, go for it. But cut off a slice of that pie so that other people can continue to write and create, which you need. It's why the discussion of AI is such a big deal. Because now they're going, well, do we need you guys anyways? And you're like, oh, that's not good.
Well, I have a friend who lives in LA and is a writer, and they were telling me the problem with AI is that they would have AI write a script. and then hand it to him, and he rewrites it, punches it up.
Yeah.
And then you only get paid so much for a rewrite. Well, you didn't write this. You're just punching it up. And he's like, this is BS.
Exactly.
Because it doesn't make any sense. It's not funny. It's not this or that.
Legitimately, is that a thing?
It's such a thing to where AI, and I think we all sit there and go, yeah, but what can AI really do? I mean, look how advanced AI has become in just the probably 6 months since people started playing with ChatGPT and these other apps. I mean, it's intelligence. So it will just it's not like it has something else to do. It literally can just continue to teach itself how to be incredibly smart and capable. And so there's a world where production can become typing in the elements you need for a story and what it needs to look like and which actors should facilitate it, and AI will create it. I mean, AI right now could create a picture of the four of us from vacation in Italy from 1965, and those photographs, which will look pretty real, will be available to us in less than a minute based on what we just typed into AI. So now you can imagine 2 years from now,
right,
typing into AI, hey, I want the movie to be exactly 68 minutes, and I want these actors, and I want this story. And the moment that becomes how the industry creates entertainment for people to consume, an entire ecosystem of people is destroyed. Because I think another element a lot of people consider with the strike is a lot of people think that writers and actors and all of these people live this sort of bougie lifestyle. But if you actually go get involved in it in Atlanta and used to be Wilmington and sometimes Charlotte and out in Los Angeles, obviously, you will see that a majority of this industry is wildly blue collar. But people don't see that. They see A-listers and celebrities and directors, and they see them get out of helicopters to go to their islands and their cars, and they don't realize that's such a small percentage, that the majority of the industry is people who grew up exactly like us, who had a dream of going, man, making movies looks fun, I want to go into it. And they literally sweat and grind and bleed all day long to build and to facilitate wardrobes and hair and makeup. I mean, you're talking about like real people who don't, who don't drink caviar milkshakes. They are just they are the blue collar people, salt of the earth. That is what we pride the identity of our country on. It is that industry. And when you go AI, you wipe out all of the Teamsters, lighting, directing, every element, acting, literally every element that is the job is now obsolete and completely gone. And so a big part of this strike is, hey, we need to sit down and talk about what will the rules be regarding AI going forward. And right now, the studios, they don't want to talk about it, which is basically saying in our hand is a card where we go, yep, just a matter of time, and then we don't have to deal with your wants and needs any longer. We can just proceed. So
terrifying.
Well,
it's like the everything in the world. It's greed. It's greed across the board, 100%, every industry.
Yeah, and I mean, I think everybody kind of has an idea of what AI can do in any industry, how it learns and gets better and blah, blah, blah. But I didn't know like what Woody was talking about, where you get paid less if they hand you a script, even if it's a piece of crap, and you make it good.
Yeah.
You don't get as much as if you had generated that script from scratch.
Yeah.
Which is something I never would have even thought of because I'm not in that business.
And it's also interesting because all of the writers, where obviously the strike started with the writers, the writers, these studio heads, it's been noted them saying that, we're going to wait them out. When they start losing their homes and apartments, they're going to have to come back to the table. But I think those studio heads don't understand that coming back to the table and getting a bad deal, they still lose their homes and apartments. So the waiting out won't work, because if the writers don't fully wait it out until the studios decide what to do that's fair, they don't have a choice. A lot of writer friends have moved out of LA, and they have moved off to a more affordable city, and they are now living out their plan B, and it has nothing to do with writing, and they've just started their lives over. And you really think about it, like, there are, someone posted this, so this isn't an idea that came to me, but someone was saying, like, it's insane the level of trauma that's going to start right now, because you have people who work in lighting, someone's a gaffer, someone works in the other side of the camera in a department you don't think about a lot, and their child is about to go off to college, and that's going to cost money. And right now, they are not earning any income because of this. And that might be, stressful for that mother or father, but think about that kid who in their life was like, all right, I'm about to go off and start this next chapter of my life. And it's like, actually, you're not, because this guy doesn't want to make 50 million. He wants to make 60 million. So you actually can't go off to do your life. And that's what is insane to me. Is that level
And
of
it's
grief.
construction, like you said, people who build sets,
Yes.
it's catering and food and
Yes, all of it across
Shocking.
the board. There are so many departments on the other side of the camera that people don't realize. And also any production, you guys I'm sure have seen it because they shoot stuff here. But any production, when you're like, oh yeah, it's some people making a movie. You're like, yeah, like 200 to 300 people employed on a project. And that is a massive part of the economy. And also entertainment is like the United States biggest export.
right.
Well, yeah, you wonder, like, when does the public really, if they're ever going to care, when does that, and does it happen when all the shows that are currently finished and go
Yeah.
out
I think
run out?
I think what's interesting is you have to hope that the public cares enough to find out what is truthfully going on.
Right.
And they have to realize, and I'm not some anti-media person, but also I had a friend, Zach Bornstein, who like tweeted out, he goes, I can't believe the strike is getting bad press when the local news owned by Disney, owned by, ABC, NBC, all the places and who they're owned by. He's like, I can't believe those studios that we're arguing with who own the news outlets are shedding a bad light on the strike. And so a lot of people, to your point that you brought up earlier, a lot of them are sitting there going, yeah, but it's hard to feel bad for these writers and actors who make millions of dollars. It's like, because that's your perception, because you think entertainment, because of lifestyles of the rich and famous and how we grew up in the 70s and 80s, constantly told, look, here's MTV Cribs. Look, you make a lot of money. They don't realize that it's not like that anymore. And it hasn't been that way for 15 years when artists stopped being in charge. And, I know people always use the term like tech bros, but that's who runs it now. And it isn't about you as an artist and facilitating creative art. It's now about the bottom line. And it's like, well, why don't I just fire you and then we make $1 million more? And they don't realize the trickle down effect negatively of such a decision,
But we want everything.
This is
to
such an
be-
uplifting conversation.
But it's
If this
fascinating.
doesn't sell tickets to my tour, guys, I don't know what will.
Rory's super funny. You got to go check him out.
This is the whole act
It's
right here.
2.5 hours of this.
It's a TED Talk about strikes and unions.
I love this about
There's
you.
going to be there's a whole segment on picketing and
Yeah,
creative
how
signs.
to.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went out and picketed in, I've been gone on this tour, and I went back to Los Angeles, and I went out to pick with, I'm a member of both unions, and so went out and we went around Disney. Bob Iger speaking up really motivated a lot of people to head towards his location to strike, and I mean, it is a full mile around the block kind of that is Disney, and it was just a constant stream. So when you try to picture how many people are striking, how many people are affected, a constant stream of people walking around a mile location every single day, and that's just one of the studios. There's obviously so many in Los Angeles that so many people are just out there going, we're still here, we're still striking, we need money. We need money to create that makes you money,
Yeah.
Speaking of creating the
Yes.
tour that you're in Asheville tonight.
Asheville.
So tick, tick, tick.
Yeah. But then I go the other way. I go, oh, we don't have to hurry or anything. I have a private jet. It goes against everything I just said. Oh, no, we're on a tour bus that can fly. And there's caviar milkshakes, like I suggested.
You're just a really good actor right now. Is that it?
I was like, wow, he really cares
He is
about the
good.
Get a
thing.
helicopter on the roof.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I land, I go on stage, I complain that I even have to do anything, and then I just fly back. Yeah, Asheville tonight, Durham, North Carolina tomorrow. I think if anyone is listening to this right now and you're like, oh man, I want to go to Asheville, I would jump on that because those tickets are about to be fully gone. If you're listening to this and you want to go to Durham, lots of tickets avail.
Really? What's going on in Durham?
I don't know.
Huh.
Come on.
I like to come up with an excuse and be like, it's the pie eating festival this week, and so naturally you're going to either buy tickets to that or
Durham's a
me.
last minute crowd. They'll show up the day of.
This is what I long. This is what everyone tells you, and you just hope that it's the truth.
It's going to be Friday. People are going to go, what do we do? Oh, Rory Scovel said, yes.
Yeah, perfect. It'll be.
Yes.
And I got to say, this hour is my tightest hour I've probably ever put together. Obviously, I've had a lot of time
So-
with 3 years off.
Is there filming? Is this going to become a special, or are you just workshopping it to get to the special?
It's pretty tight. I'm probably tinkering with a few things on the back half of it, but pretty close to as is right now is going to be what we shoot more than likely in the late fall, early winter for a special.
Gotcha.
It's funny because the last couple were Live Without a Net, right?
Yeah.
You had nothing. And
Right.
you're like,
That was we did that in March of 2018 in Atlanta, 6 nights in a row, an hour a night, and I just went up and made up the whole show. It was a different show every single night, making it up. And I'll say what's cool is that this hour I have now is a lot of material discovered that week that I fine-tuned into an actual act. So what I learned is, one, I have on film the birth of a joke. And once we shoot this special and it comes out, the death of a joke, because obviously I won't be doing that anymore. But I learned my process, and my process is, when you got to start over, put shows together where you have no material, go on stage and start talking, and then walk away with a bunch of stuff to work on,
Really? I mean, that's, God.
It's terrifying,
I was
but
going to
it's
say,
such a
how
high.
terrifying is that?
It's terrifying, but like when it does work and you kind of stumble into material or the crowd's energy is just really good, it's truly so much fun. It's so much fun to do. I mean, the stuff you stumble into is absurd.
Well, I just remember there was about a 10-minute segment of just anal. And it was, like, you laugh at first.
It's like, here
but
we
then,
go.
Like, after a while, you're like, okay, I get it. But then it fell back into even more hysterical because you just pressed it.
Kept going.
The foot was on the gas pedal, and
Yeah.
we're not stopping.
Yeah.
You're on board. And God,
Right.
by the end of it, tears are streaming out of my eyes. I'm doubled over.
I love that.
And it's the same joke that you started with 10 minutes earlier.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, taking that sort of commitment and mentality into my marriage isn't great. I will hammer a joke on stage, and then off stage, my wife was like, "Just stop, stop talking." I'm like, "I can't."
Yes. I 100% get that.
Yeah, just, I mean,
Everyone's like, "Yep, that's
just
exactly
we'd
what's right."
like you all to stop talking about anal so much.
I know. It's such a fun topic, though, and it really brings people together. It really
Always
does.
been one.
It
There is just one way.
There's one. Yeah, there's just the one.
There's just the one. Okay.
And it really brings people together in one way.
It's funny as you say, like the death of a joke, and obviously once you do a special, right, then the idea is you're not touring with those jokes again or
Yeah.
whatever. But how many years have we been playing the same joke from Rory specifically
Oh.
The basic instinct.
since before we were in
Alaska.
Charlotte?
Yeah, Alaska.
It's been over 15 years. And I know we mention this every time, but it's still one of my favorite bits, and I don't know why. The Michael Douglas bit from Basic Instinct. And we still play that up. We probably played that within the last week.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so it doesn't die. It lives on here.
I
Old
love
jokes come here.
that. I
I
love
mean-
that. That is from 2006. That is when, and I probably was doing that joke as early as like 2005, but I remember that I did that. I think I did that on my Live at Gotham or something like that in like 2006. Maybe I put it on my album, but that's a very early cut.
Super close up of Michael Douglas.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at, Dad.
Big Michael Douglas fan.
Huge Michael Douglas fan.
And just some variation of, bet you're not worried about my grades now, are you? Can be used in so many circumstances of life. And I still say that to this day. And the people on the inside
it'll literally-
understand the joke.
Right.
If Michael Douglas is in the news, I'm like, boom, here we go.
Yeah. Good.
Rory time.
Great.
I will see him like on some Entertainment Tonight. I'm a huge Michael Douglas.
Yeah.
And
Huge.
my wife was like, "Why do you always say that? You don't ever watch any of his movies." I'm like, "Oh, let me show you Rory's bit."
Like, actually, there's a guy. He's going to be in Durham in a couple years, and get tickets now.
Ask him about anal.
Yeah.
So are you back to the physical for a second?
Yeah.
Is that something that periodically you're always out there trying to figure out if there's something else away from comedy that maybe is fun?
Yeah,
and
I will.
auditioning?
The most focus I've ever been on it was because of the pandemic, and like this was the only job, and it wasn't like I was like trying to go, all right, I'm doing this, but I need to remember my hour and go do spots. Like there were no spots to do or anything, so I got to kind of just focus on watching Rose and seeing how does she do it, and like she's a professional. What can I learn from watching her? And I got to say, it was like crazy to go, oh man, I'm taking like a master class from someone who literally, it's not like I'm just off to the side watching. I'm literally on the court and I have to contribute. And so I got to learn a lot and finally get to play a more dramatic role in scenes that didn't require comedy, but they required maybe tears or anger or frustration, whatever, like between us as a married couple. And it changed me. I was like, oh man, I would do any gig. I really obviously we all want jobs. I would do any gig, but getting to finally do something dramatic, it makes you go, how far can I go? Like, is there anything I can be cast in where someone would go, man, I really believe it. I really believe that you felt this way, or when you broke down, it really mattered to you. This season, I have a big breakdown scene over like something that happens with my daughter, and I remember going into that so excited because I was like, I just want to know if I can do it. I just want to know if in this scene, when they say action, I can get myself to fully just cry and emote and let it all out. And I got to say, we did some takes where it's not going, and you're like, does this mean I'm not good? And then we did some takes where whatever it is, whatever I was able to lock into, the tears started, and then you just press the gas on whatever is getting you there. And I was like, oh my God, this is such a rush. Like, I can see why very good actors get obsessed with wanting to create a character and do this, because there's something weirdly satisfying about emoting these things that don't apply to your own life. I also think that's why some people maybe go crazy, because psychologically they're dealing with trauma that isn't even real to their own life. But yeah, I want to try to do as much of it as I can.
Well, you're a dick. I think you're doing it.
Perfect.
At least for me. I was like, man, Rory's an asshole on this TV.
I love that.
When you talk about never doing it before, really, but at the same time, I think about even the beginning of that special where you're pretending to be an a-hole.
Oh yeah, the rock star guy.
Yeah. So I'm like, I could see somebody seeing that and being like, he could probably do that for real, like away from comedy, and see that get the wheels turning.
It is one of those things where, and this was so weird about acting and stand-up, at least like with stand-up, if you're like, I think I can be funny on stage, there are so many opportunities as someone who's never done it to go sign up and find out.
Right.
But in the world of acting, if you're like, oh man, I know how to tell a joke and be silly and set up someone for a joke and play around in that space, but I don't really know if I could do dramatic acting. There isn't some kind of sign up you can go do to find out. You can maybe audition for a play, or you can take classes, but to truly go, get me on camera, I want to see if I can hit these notes, you have to kind of wait and see if that happens for you. And so, I to get to do this, I was like, oh, I think it doesn't just make you go, I think I can do it. Because I think I did okay. I think I did okay this whole show. And I think this new season, I did okay. But it does make you go, I think I could do better. And now you're like wanting that drug. You're like, who will let me,
right?
Who will give me a microphone so I can do it again and try it? Yeah.
Well, it's got to be fun, too, to play a character like that. That's like something you're not doing in your other walk of life.
It's very therapeutic.
Yeah.
It's very therapeutic to be like, hey, in this scene, you're just a huge dick and you're getting into this fight. And you're like, you step back and you're like, oh, but I wouldn't do that. I would probably ask blah, blah, blah. But then you're like, oh, forget me. Right. This is great. I get to be a lunatic and just throw a thing. I mean, there was a scene last season where, Rose and I get into a fight in a garage, and she says something to me, and at some point I remember we were in there like rehearsing, and we're in the garage, and I like picked up a screw or a wrench, and I go, can I throw this? Which is like everyone's like, yeah. What do you mean? Can you throw it? Like, obviously, don't throw it at Rose. But I'm like, and then I like hit this like tool. I don't know what it was called. Now everyone knows I don't go into garages. I hit a tool locator.
Toolbox?
I had a tool keeper. I call it a tool keeper. And it was like really metal. And I was like, oh yeah, that'll have a big impact because of that sound. And we did the scene, and I picked up that wrench and I threw it into it, and it she's yelling at me, but it obviously causes this like moment. And then I say something to her, and I pick up the bike and I like throw it off to the side. And what's so fun is like none of that is like written into the thing to do, but you get there and you start to rehearse, and you're with Annie and you're with Rose, and you're like, hey, what if I do this? And like, Annie knows how she wants the scene to play out, so she might be like, oh, that's exciting. That's not something that ever occurred to me, because when I'm sitting there writing this on my computer, I'm not in the space to go, oh, that's right, there will be a bicycle there,
right,
that you can pick up and throw,
right.
But on the day when you're actually there doing it, you're like, I think I'm going to be this mad, and I think I'm this frustrated that she's mad at me, when really I think she's wrong. And so if I do these actions, it'll be fun. And like that's what kind of opens your eyes to acting in these scenes, and really great actors, is that a lot of that little stuff in between the moments of what they're saying and doing is just kind of created on the spot. A lot of writers aren't there to know, like, oh, maybe I can add this in. Some really great writers really see it top to bottom and they add that stuff. But really great actors facilitate a thing, and then it becomes this whole other, here I am yelling at Rose. I'm like, I'm not even mad. This feels great. It's like I get to get into an argument that has no consequences. They say cut, and I'm like, we're still buddies.
Right. You're not sleeping on the couch. The police weren't called to your real life.
I'm only mad because they said I had to be.
But tell me if this, so I've never done anything like it, but I've thought about, like, if you improvise in a situation like that, are you concerned that somewhere somebody's like, this guy's psychotic? Like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
And, like, you freak people out. And, I would be a little self-conscious about it.
I know what you mean, because I think about it when you see people that, like, have to, for instance, Leonardo DiCaprio in Django Unchained, having to play this wildly racist person.
Right.
And you're doing it and you're like,
and you're too good.
Because I have to tap into this thing, I don't want you to give this impression that I really do feel this way.
Right.
And I remember, I think even he was like saying that he like talking to all the actors being like, I have to obviously call you this and I'm sorry. And I think Jamie Foxx was like, we know you're not saying it.
We read the script.
But I get that from Leonardo DiCaprio, where you're like, but I'm going to really, like, say it because I know how it needs to be done, and I don't want you to think that comes from some kind of real place. And I get that. I think to a degree, all of that stuff is what makes really funny stuff or really emotional stuff. I think that's why we're so captivated by storytelling as human beings, because even when someone does that psychotic thing, you're like, yeah, that's me. Like me picking up a bike and throwing it, whether you've ever done it, you've thought about it. And also you've thought about, like, physical violence in your head, not necessarily with, like, a spouse, but you've been cut off in traffic and been like, I'm going to beat that guy up. And that's not at all who you even are, but your brain tells you that, and you go, I can't imagine what that looks like, because I've also seen people do that who I'm not similar to. And I think acting is a little bit like that. You go, oh yeah, when I throw this wrench into this thing, I've never gotten into a fight like that with my wife, but I do know what this would be like if you were this level of mad. Yeah. And I think that's why I say there's a little bit of therapy to it, because these things that you maybe would want to sort of live out, acting sort of gives you that opportunity to get that out of your system as a thing.
I think you should do a TED Talk, now that I think about it. Do it on stage.
I mean, this is kind of why I was like, guys, get me in there. Let me also record it. Let's get a tape. This is my submission to TED, whoever that even is.
Technology,
Mr. Talk.
Technology, entertainment, and design. TED.
Yes.
Well,
so it's not Mr. Theodore Talk. That's not a real person. All right.
That's a different thing.
All right, fine.
That's all about anal.
Well, that's why they've never booked me, because I keep submitting my tape to an actual person.
You tried to bring the anal thing back, but it was shut down.
We're bringing anal back.
Right.
Anal is coming back, guys.
It's not. Stop. It's not. I'm here to tell you, it's not. Stop spreading that rumor.
No, it is. It is.
It literally is coming back,
I think stop spreading that around to your guy buddies, because
whether you like it or not.
Like it.
Yeah. My guy buddies love it when I talk about it.
That's all we talk about to each other.
That's all I've ever talked about.
You look.
I talk about the scores last night and anal.
Right. Just stare into my eyes.
We're the most cliche men. I talk about mowing the lawn on Saturdays and anal.
That's the new name of the special.
Yeah.
Mowing the lawn and anal.
Mowing the lawn, then anal. Like, oh, okay. It's a very specific schedule.
Pretty packed weekend.
Yeah, it's more just his iCalendar. He's really just exposing.
It's coming back. I didn't know it was a big thing.
It didn't go away, Chelsea.
It didn't go
never
away.
went away.
Yeah.
I do need your TED Talk now.
Yeah. See? God, this is great.
All right. Well, I guess we'll let you take your helicopter to Asheville now.
Thank you.
Good luck with the caviar milkshake.
Thank you.
I
They're
didn't think you would
disgusting,
That sounds
but
awful.
they feel rich.
Yeah, that's
And you
all
want
that
the main thing is make sure people see you drinking
It's
it.
a
That's really,
luxurious mouthfeel.
You don't even drink it, you just pour
it's
it
a
out.
very sea-oriented milkshake. So dairy and caviar just it doesn't fully mix, but that's the drink.
That's what you got to do.
Yeah.
All right. Asheville tonight, Durham tomorrow night.
Buy
and
tickets.
Other cities.
Yeah.
RoryScovel.com.
Yeah. And also, you know, I should have mentioned this. My podcast is now iHeartMedia, guys. We're family. We're now family. Will Ferrell's Big Money Players, Pen Pals podcast, iHeartMedia. So
Absolutely.
yeah, if you can't make it to Durham or Asheville, at least listen to that. I just need money. Like, just send money.
The man's on strike.
Buy tickets to the show tonight and don't even come to it. I don't care.
I just Venmo you money.
Yeah. If everyone could Venmo me, that would be great.
Done.
But in the memo, put anal.
Thank you. Thank you. That's right.
All right.
Awesome.
Yes,
See you,
sir.
everybody.
I don't think-
We could.
Guys, that's going to win. That might win something.
Yes, absolutely.